Hello, this is Priscilla Rice, and I'm coming to you from Live Oak Recording Studio. This week, we're going to have a rebroadcast of one of our earlier classic podcasts. We hope you enjoy it, and thanks so much for listening. Episode 230, The Value of Exit Interviews.
You're listening to the official BNI podcast with BNI founder and chairman, Dr. Ivan Misner. Stay tuned for networking and referral marketing tips from the man who's been called the father of modern networking, along with suggestions and insights into getting the most from your membership in the world's largest networking organization, BNI.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the official BNI podcast brought to you by networkingnow.com, which is the leading site on the net for networking downloadables. I'm Priscilla Rice, and I come to you from Live Oak Recording Studio in Berkeley, California, and I'm joined on the phone by the founder and the chairman of BNI, Dr. Ivan Misner. Hello, Ivan. How are you, and where are you?
Hi, Priscilla. This week I'm at the BNI International Conference in Long Beach. I talked about it briefly in last week's podcast. We have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people coming here now. The conference starts tomorrow, and we do this every year. It's like going to a UN convention, UN conference. It's really an amazing experience. And members are welcome to come on the Members' Day, which is on Friday every year. So just look at BNI.com in November every year, and if a member anywhere in the world you'd like to come, you're welcome. We had somebody from Africa come last year.
Well, I know. It's very interesting to meet all the people from all over the world.
Yeah.
It gives you a real sense of how big the organization is.
It really does, no question about it.
Yeah.
So today I'm going to talk about the value of exit interviews, and I thought I would start with a couple of things. First of all, I made reference to an exit interview in episode 222. Why do people leave? And so if you have a chance, if you're listening to this podcast and you have not listened to episode 222, I think it goes hand in glove with this podcast. So take a look at that. And I started talking about the fact, in that podcast I talked about the fact that we started doing exit interviews a number of years ago, but I don't think I really gave the story to how they came about. So I thought I would open it up with the story as to how exit interviews began. What happened was that we had somebody quit a chapter, and they were a great member, and they seemed very, very happy.
Yeah. They
really seemed to like the organization. And so somebody said, you know what, we should really ask them why. And I said, well, let's do an exit interview. They said, well, what's that look like? This is years ago, Priscilla. I mean, I had like I couldn't have had more than 40 chapters.
Yeah.
And one of the kinds of things that I did in my profession as a management consultant was I designed exit interviews for companies. So I said, well, it's just basically a list of questions that you ask somebody when they leave. And so I wrote this up for a specific member. Mm-hmm. And tried it. I called him. I said, we're starting to do exit interviews. I didn't want to say, because you're leaving, but that's what I did was, we're starting to do exit interviews. I just had a few questions. And we asked why the person was leaving. And I asked the question a couple of times in different ways as to why they were leaving. And I found out, Priscilla, that the person was leaving because they were mad at another member. And even though they said, well, business is really booming and things are going great and, I can't handle it all, I found out that wasn't the real reason. Yeah. The real reason is that somebody else had kind of ripped them off in a chapter. Mm-hmm. And that's when I had an opportunity then to do some consulting, some mentoring. And I said, look, do you really want to leave because somebody has done something inappropriate? We should deal with that and not have you leave. And he said, I don't want to make a big deal out of it. And the thing about this guy was I knew he was a real ethical person, and I guilted him. Yes, I'll be honest, I guilted him. I said, if you leave, do you think this guy's going to do the same thing to someone else? Mm-hmm. And he said, yes. And I said, then let's do the right thing together and let me help you with the membership committee. And let's bring this to the membership committee so that they know what happened and they can make a decision. And the membership committee heard the issue and they removed the other person. So guess who stayed? The guy who was going to quit. Right. And it all started because of this exit interview. And in this podcast, I'm going to review what the exit interview consists of, and there's going to be a downloadable so that members can download this on their own, although this is available to leadership teams and to directors. Any member can download this, and I urge chapters to use this when you have people leaving, and not just anybody. I'd recommend you use it consistently in your chapter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
So one of the things we say is that the value of an exit interview is that directors, but this is more than directors. I think members can do this as well, but I don't recommend it be any member. I recommend that it be the leadership team, somebody from the leadership team or somebody from the membership committee. And so anyone in authority who regularly performs member exit interviews, there's a number of benefits. It allows the chapter to figure out if maybe this isn't the right chapter. Maybe there'd be a different chapter that would work for them because of a personality conflict. It provides insight to what's going on, what the member's impression is, and how BNI can serve more effectively in terms of quality control. And it can help chapters take ownership for the quality of their members and avert potential problems. So exit interviews are a very powerful tool, which I think are not utilized as much as they have been in the past in some regions. And so I would urge you to have somebody in your group be responsible for doing exit interviews. So here's what the exit interview consists of. Okay. And then maybe, Priscilla, we can just chat for a few minutes if you have any questions. Mm-hmm. So the exit interview basically consists of, the interview. You put down who's interviewing, who you were interviewing, and you ask them, what's the reason for leaving? So, do you mind telling me why are you leaving? What are the reason or reasons for you leaving? And then, did you feel that BNI was a benefit to you and your profession? You'll find, and we've found this in studies we've done in the past, that 20% of the people 20% of a chapter will leave for reasons that a chapter can't control. And I've talked about this in previous podcasts. Their health problem, changing careers, moving, and you're going to get 20% turnover. So if you have 40% turnover in your chapter, half of that's going to be for stuff you can't control. And so when you say, do you feel it's been benefit, and they say yes, you find out maybe that, they're leaving because of something that's really beyond your chapter's control. Ask the person, no matter what they said, whether they're leaving because they're unhappy or leaving because they're happy, what did you like most about BNI? And then another question is, was there anything you disliked about BNI? And if so, what is it, and how would you change it if you could? Mm-hmm. Did you feel that you were well informed on the activities and benefits offered to you by BNI? And then there's 5 questions that are asked on the last question, sort of a 5-part question, yes or no. And this gives you a sense of the kinds of activity that the member engaged in, so that if they say, no, I didn't get any business out of BNI, you can get a sense of whether they were engaged in the kind of activities that they needed to be in. For example, did you meet for lunch with other members of the group, yes or no? And if so, roughly how many? Mm-hmm. Were you specific about expressing what a good referral for you was? Did you ask members if the referral you gave worked for them? Did you prepare your 60-second presentations? Did you feel you had a good communication with your chapter and its members? And really the idea is to just get people to open up and talk. And here's this isn't in any of the written material. I'm going to give you an old technique as an old HR guy who's worked with human resources and worked with studies and surveys. A concept called semantic differential questioning, when you basically ask the same question in different ways. And so asking why somebody left using different words will oftentimes get different answers. So what was the reason for leaving? Why do you think, what was one of the most important factors in your decision to leave? Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. And you don't do this one right after the other. You kind of may do it in one in the beginning and then throw that in the middle and at the very end. So, what's the bottom line for you, Priscilla? What's the bottom line on why you left? And you only do that when you have somebody who you think has another reason for leaving than what they're saying. But by using semantic differential questioning, where you're asking the same question in 2 or 3 different ways, I know it sounds silly, but you will get many times a different answer. Yeah. And when they say to you, you know what, you kind of asked that and I've kind of answered that, then you're probably getting the answer that's true. And again, I wouldn't recommend you use that technique for everyone, but if you've got somebody who you think's not being completely candid because of whatever reasons, it's a great way in an exit interview to get the bottom line, to get the information. And knowledge is power. If you know why people are leaving, you can impact it. And I highly recommend exit interviews. So go back and listen to episode 22 after you listen to this, and it puts it all together.
Episode 222.
I'm sorry, 222. Listen to episode 222 in order to, 22 is a long time ago. But 222 will tie it together with this episode. So that's the exit interview.
Okay, I want to just say a few things. One is I think that we definitely lost a very positive member due to something that was personal between members, and he just didn't want to deal with it. And I think it's really a shame because he had like perfect attendance, had been a member for years, and was really a great person. So I think if we had done something like this, maybe we could have avoided it. He just felt really uncomfortable and didn't want to really talk about what the reasoning was, but it was definitely a conflict with another member.
Yeah.
So I think it happens more often than you think.
It does, and people oftentimes, there's a lot of reasons why they won't talk about it. It might be that they just don't want to cause waves.
Yeah.
It might be that they don't want to have a battle. It might be that they're just so frustrated they don't want to ever sit in the same room with that other person.
I think it was that.
And you know what? That's in a way that's the wrong reason to leave, because now you leave the person who created the problem in the chapter.
Yeah.
And good people will do the right thing when you present it to them appropriately. And if you say to them, do you think that person's going to do the same thing to someone else? They'll often say yes. Mm-hmm. And that's when you say, then let's do the right thing here and let's tell somebody about this.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, and I'm definitely going to take it back to my chapter and see if we can get it started, because we have a very good chapter that's been, I think it's 8 years old, and but we're losing some of our newer members, and we have to try to figure out why. So
yeah, that's important. So I'd recommend that everyone listening to this podcast, take this podcast to your leadership team. Tell your leadership team, hey, there's a podcast you need to listen to, and I think this chapter should consider doing them. Every chapter doesn't have to do this, but this is one of those techniques, Priscilla, where this is not BNI 101. Uh-huh. This is BNI 401. Okay, if you don't do this, it's not the end of the world. But if you got a really good chapter and you just want to make it even better, and you want to do some things, you're already a good chapter and you really want to get even better, this is a technique that really, really works. Of course, it works for the chapters that are struggling as well, but it's just not a basic technique. It's a little more complicated to do, and it takes a little bit more of a commitment. Yeah.
Okay, great, Ivan. I really like that.
Well, thanks a lot, Priscilla.
Okay, I think that's it for this week. I'd just like to remind the listeners that this podcast has been brought to you by networkingnow.com, which is the leading site on the net for networking downloadables. Thank you so much for listening. This is Priscilla Rice, and we hope you'll join us next week for another exciting episode of the official BNI podcast.